Hello everyone, Ogre27 Kane here today with a very special review of Hades for the Nintendo Switch. This game's pretty awesome. If you've never seen it or experienced it, then sit back and get ready for a really fun ride. This game is a roguelike, which means it has permadeath, but it also has a variable system of permanent upgrades as well. The work orders and upgrades section of this is more for the aesthetics and for the other things you need around the house. Now, in light of the recent announcement of Hades 2, I had to get back into this and I had to find the addiction again. And believe me folks, it's still there. I beat this game 7 times now, and I'm just as addicted now as I was on day 1. The weapons, the upgrade path, the story, no matter what it is, something will hook you and keep you in this game, or make you come back. Trust me, I've been trying for a while to get away from it. It's still one of my most played games on my Nintendo Switch. The only other roguelike that I would put in the same category as this would possibly be Children of Morta. That's a pretty fantastic game in itself, but that's for another time. Let's get into this review now. First up, we got the story. This story is something different than anything I think I've ever experienced. It gives it to you in bite-sized pieces. Every single time you think that there's nothing important going on, you get a little tidbit and a little more curious. I didn't start this game thinking that I was going to care about any of these gods or any of this ridiculousness, and I'll tell you right now, some of them are pretty interesting. It starts off as a story of nothing but Hades and his malevolence towards you, but then you realize it's bigger and all the gods are involved. What are their plots? What are their plans? The game does a pretty good job of hiding all this stuff. It really makes you think. That's about all I'm going to give on the story, because the story is definitely something you got to experience yourself. Let's get into combat next. The combat in this game is a top-down isometric view. It has a lot of speed and a lot of precision to it. The game really rewards you for thinking about how you're going to move, but at the same time rewards you more for the speed in which you do it. The other thing is that the combat is not necessarily always based around the same idea. Every weapon has a different moveset, has a different feel to it. Every single boon you have affects each weapon differently. The game really makes you kind of play with everything. There's no way you're going to figure it all out on the first run, and there's no way you're going to figure out which weapons work with the best boons on your first run. And even using the term best boons is still subjective. It depends on your choice of weapon and what kind of boon you like to use. Personally for me, I like the dash boons and I like the deflect boons. Poseidon and Athena are by far my favorite gods. If you prefer status effects, maybe go Aphrodite. If you need a little extra critical in your life, hit up Artemis. There's definitely a lot to play with. Ares is one I haven't really dug into, but I know that his Blade Rift is an amazing call. Every time you experiment with a weapon, there's always something new you find. There's always a new ability or a new boon or something in a different pattern or way. The first 50 times or so I played this game through, I literally just sat back and experimented with everything. I think I didn't beat it until like maybe try 60 or 65, but by that point I finally had an understanding of how the weapons and boons correspond together. And believe me, once you have that pattern, it sets you up for success. You learn how to take advantage of that, and you learn what boons you can put together that will help you construct a winning formula. That pattern is key to deciding your victory in this game. What I will say though, is the entire addiction is built around those patterns, and you finding new ones. And every time you find something that's pretty amazing, you learn to build on it, and that's what it is, building. With that being said, let's get into the next category, graphics and animation. This game is absolutely stunning. This game highlights everything the Switch is capable of doing, has a completely steady frame rate, handles tons of objects on screen, and has a beautiful art style. Never once did I feel like there was anything caused due to a technical error in my loss. I always felt like it was my fault for losing a battle. The studio that put this together was Supergiant. They're a tiny little studio with a load of talent. Every single one of their games I've played has been consistent and built well. They test all their games really well, and they have a fantastic art department. I recommend checking out some of their other titles. Another important detail to mention is that Switch ports oftentimes are a downgraded version with less than to their counterparts. This is not the case with this game. Supergiant really put the effort in to make this game the best they could on this system. There are few games that I say can rival the technical performance of this. As a Nintendo fan, the crazy part is that this port is better than a lot of the work Nintendo puts forth themselves. That to me is pretty impressive in its own right, because Nintendo does a really good job on their stuff and genuinely cares. Lastly, let's talk about the differences between tabletop mode and docked mode. If you enjoy the little screen, especially the OLED, you're not going to see a huge dip. Even with as much as going on, I play this game tabletop mode 90% of the time. It doesn't obstruct my view, and all the movement, surprisingly enough, works pretty well and your eyes adapt. The responsiveness of the controls are pretty spot on as well. Never once did I have a problem with them. Next up, let's get into gameplay, where we can focus a little bit more on the controls. The controls work absolutely perfectly. Every time you're trying to do a special move, an attack, a call, you name it, the game lets you cancel out moves and work in other moves at a pace that fits you, instead of forcing you to learn a certain pattern. It's definitely not a Dark Souls kind of system. The other thing, of course, is the roguelike addiction. The gameplay in this is set pretty statically. You have 4 main worlds that you can visit, but each world is randomly generated, yet still similar in its build every time you get there. You can expect a lot of the same things, visiting a lot of the same people, going through like rooms. The only thing that changes is the outcome of each room, the reward or the boon that you get, and the value of that. Another important feature to this is how the bosses work. The bosses themselves have almost like ranks, and the first couple times you fight them, you're going to notice that they're not as difficult as you would think, but each time you go through, they seem to just get a little harder and you don't really understand why. Well, a lot of that has to do with how far you get through the game and what you beat and what you've done. As you get further, there's something called the Pact of Punishment, and this allows you to essentially make the game more difficult. Now, the bosses really adapt to this, and as you can see here, this is definitely more frenetic than the first time I fought this boss. The cool part, though, is the better that you get at this game, the funner the bosses get. This is my favorite boss in the entire game. I enjoy how interactive it is, how you have to kind of move around and think, and it's not just one static creature you're beating up on. Now, this is not the case with all of the bosses. Some of the bosses are kind of boring. I'm not a huge fan of the third boss, especially after you've done it so many times. The first boss is pretty cool. It changes up. There are basically 3 different forms and patterns to it. The last thing I want to say about gameplay is how fun all of this stuff comes together, and it really makes you feel good. Well, let's get into the conclusion now. Should you buy this game? Absolutely. Should you put 100 hours into this game? Absolutely. Do I believe if you pick this game up you will? Absolutely. There's not really a better option out there for roguelikes. Dead Cells is a great game, Skull the Hero Slayer is a great game, but this game is probably the very best. It is the cream of the crop. So if you enjoy roguelikes and you need to dump a couple 100 hours, this is the way to do it. I know it's kind of popular at this point, not really a hidden gem, but there's not really a roguelike I can actually recommend more. The last thing I have to mention in conclusion is the audio. The audio is definitely one of a kind. It's pretty amazing. They put a lot of effort into making each track different. It has everything from exciting tracks to depressing and foreboding tracks. Everything that you will experience in the game, the music kind of intensifies, and I really enjoy that. The final thing I can say is that this game is worth it on any console you get it on. Whether it's the Switch, the PlayStation, or the Xbox, this game definitely is worth your money. I know it's free on Game Pass and it's always discounted on PlayStation. This game also has a physical release. So let's give away our parting thoughts. What is it about this game that makes me go back to it, get an addiction, that's made millions of people get an addiction? Well, as you can see by the action on the screen, it's really fast-paced, and it rewards you for the work that you put in. I've always really enjoyed games that reward work ethic. To me, that's part of the discovery. Whether or not I'm running around in a free roam game or I'm just exploring in a linear pattern, as long as I feel that sense of achievement, that sense of momentum and going forward, then it usually keeps me into a game. And this game has magic like that, like no other. With the newest announcement of Hades 2, I really hope that they can continue this magic. I hope they can continue this pattern and this trend that they've created, because this game is special. I know Supergiant is very competent and very capable. This is probably their baby right now, and they're working on it night and day. I have the utmost confidence in them that they will succeed twice in a row. So does this game look interesting to you? Does the action on the screen look worth a try? Does it look like this game would be any fun to your playstyle? Unfortunately, all I can do is sit here and recommend this over and over and over. It really takes you going out and trying this for yourself. But if you can, we really need to support this developer for this magic they've created. I upload every Monday. This has been my Game of the Week, Hades for the Nintendo Switch. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, I enjoyed making it. So please, like and subscribe, share if you feel like it, but most importantly, come check out the rest of my videos on my channel. Thank you, and have a great day. Ogre27 Kane, signing out.